Is Craig from Southern Charm explosive, or is ADHD being misunderstood? Ever watched someone on reality TV and thought, why are they reacting like that? Too big, too fast, too emotional. And then, of course, everyone around them acts shocked when they finally snap and it goes really big. So last night I was watching Southern Charm, and I don't think we're just watching drama. I think we're watching what happens when neurological differences get interpreted as personality flaws. For those of you who don't know me well, one of my guilty pleasures is reality TV. And I know, it's crazy and it's trashy and it's all those things, but I love it because it's one of the only times my brain actually shuts off. No analysis, no overthinking, just chaos, pretty people, and the occasional dinner party from hell that delivers instant dopamine. Uh, all my Beverly Hills fans out there, if you know, you know. So last night, I was watching the latest episode of Southern Charm, and we pick up right where it left off. Craig Conover tells Anita Aspen to F off after her constant commentary on his relationships and faults. Everyone is stunned, tension builds, and by the end of the episode, you guessed it, another Craig blowout. This time after a betrayal involving a secret kiss exposed by none other than his supposed best friend, Austin Kroll. Austin has a terrible habit of putting Craig down and poking the bear, and then acting surprised when Craig finally explodes. Add to this Sally Carson, who has recently also taken to piling on after Craig made it clear he wasn't romantically interested. Sour grapes much? So, we've got social pressure, public commentary, and emotional stakes. And here's the thing, Craig has been very open about having ADHD. In earlier seasons, he talked a lot about the medication that he was on. And this is the only reason why I'm even talking about this, is because he has been open and honest about it. Because it's important to know that ADHD is part of the broader neurodiversity umbrella. And there's a huge overlap between ADHD and autism. Many people live with both, diagnosed or not. Both involve differences in emotional regulation, social processing, and nervous system response. So when I talk about ADHD here, I'm really talking about how neurodivergent brains are often judged through neurotypical expectations and how quickly neurological differences can get framed as personality flaws. After the episode aired, I went down the Reddit rabbit hole, as you do, and I came across this comment. What followed wasn't just a discussion about behavior, it became a discussion about whether someone like Craig should even be in that environment. But let me back up and elaborate for you. You see, the conversation moved quickly into, well, my friend has ADHD and doesn't act like that. And then, of course, there's this one, no one is responsible for his emotions. Duh. And then it moved to this. Maybe this environment just isn't for him. And this last one is where I think we need to slow down, because this is where misunderstanding quietly turns into exclusion. Research shows ADHD doesn't just affect focus, it affects emotional regulation. And this means that emotions can spike faster, feel so much more intense, and they take a lot longer to settle. There's another piece to this too. It's called rejection sensitivity. People with ADHD often experience teasing or criticism more intensely than neurotypical people. Even a subtle public jab can feel deeply personal, not because they're dramatic, but because their nervous system processes social threat differently. So imagine how Craig feels all of the times we've seen his so called friend Austin pick and pick and pick at him, sometimes within his own hearing, on screen, with friends, and he expects Craig to not react. So it's important to know rejection sensitivity is a heightened response to criticism, which is all another way to say that environment matters. Stress makes ADHD symptoms worse. Social pressure makes regulation harder. Reality TV is engineered chaos. They pick people because they know they can push buttons. So, in one show, you've got public commentary, group conflict, and humiliating moments. This is not a neutral playground. It is something that will amplify everything. Now, I want to be clear here. Understanding this doesn't excuse behavior. And I'm going to say that again for those in the back row. I am not excusing bad behavior. Craig's blowups are still his responsibility, but explanation is not the same thing as an excuse. Ignoring the neurological piece leads to a familiar question: why can't he just control himself? And this is what I saw as the conversation shifted toward maybe this environment just isn't for someone like him. See, this is where ableism quietly enters the room, not as cruelty, but as assumption. Ableism can look like assuming someone should remove themselves from opportunities because their brain works differently. And to that, I say a big nope. People with invisible disabilities deserve the same access to spaces as neurotypical people, even if those spaces are harder for them to navigate. Craig makes great TV. He's leveraged the show well. In fact, one could argue perhaps the best out of any other Southern Charm cast member. But here's the kicker: the same environment that makes compelling television may also make regulation harder. So we can hold someone accountable and still acknowledge that context matters. Because if we look only at the reaction and ignore neurological differences and environmental pressure, we risk turning brain based challenges into moral judgments. And that doesn't just affect reality TV stars, it affects real people navigating real relationships every single day. What happens on TV bleeds into the social consciousness. Look, understanding will never erase responsibility, but responsibility shouldn't erase understanding either.